So, in Chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, Lord Krishna is speaking to Arjuna about what? The nature of
the self.
Himself, oneself. Yeah. And the theme is he's telling Arjuna that he has to do his duty, but he's also stealing him by sharing with him the nature of self. And then he had a second line, and this morning we'll pick up the third line as well. So the second line came after, not the second sloka. There were a few around this, but a second approach. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, if you don't completely believe what I'm saying, then what? What was the second one?
The self is not burned by fire.
No.
Not that one.
A whole second approach.
Oh, a second.
To get him to do his duty.
Nobody's killed.
And it's not the second approach.
Oh.
even if you did, even if you were the body and did die, life is a cycle and everything is dying and being brought back
what
to
dies
life
is,
eternally.
So, in the beginning is unmanifest, in the middle is manifest, and in the end is unmanifest again. But then, what does that lead to? Manifest. So he's describing the cycle of life. So he's saying, even if you were this body, then you come again. You keep going. So, therefore, do your duty. It's a little bit, for us in the West, it's a little bit more arcane. The concept of reincarnation, and the second one really is straightforward reincarnation. So the concept of reincarnation is well accepted in the East, not so well accepted in the West. Although it's interesting because the proof of it is all around us. What is it that keeps coming?
Tendencies.
Life is a cycle, so what is it that keeps coming?
I keep imagining those people in battle too, like how does anybody survive? When you have hundreds of thousands of people collapsing.
And it's a question of how you choose to look at it. So first of all, Lord Krishna is teaching us that we're not this body, right? And that's the lasting teaching. When we understand this, then freedom comes.
Yeah, that's a great part.
Because the lack of freedom is related to attachment to the notion that I am this body.
Yeah, as long as they talk to each other, they know that there's exciting times happening ahead.
Exciting times happening ahead.
That's
actually not the point that's being shared. The point is, it gets good, it gets bad, and it continues. The hot pulms, and if there's heat, then there's cold. And if there's cold, then there will be heat. If there's life, there's going to be, and if there's death, there's going to be life. So everything here is a cycle. This is the point of it. So I mean, the good times are ahead, and then right after that are the bad times.
Yeah.
And then the good times again, and then
Do I have
bad times again. Okay. So beings originally are 28. Beings originally are all unmanifested. Is it true?
Yes.
At mid-state, they're manifested and unmanifested again at the end. So what is the point of lamenting?
What's lamenting? Oh, thinking too much over it?
No, like that.
Yeah,
Being sad about it.
Yeah.
You just don't know where people go when they die. I mean, if you lose a loved one, you just don't know if you're going to see them in this life.
So what? From that perspective, it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, it's just a weird thought and a feeling, and that's why people.
No, I mean that's that lamenting, by the way. So you're sharing it.
It's a tough one.
It's tough when you have this notion, when you have the idea that I am this body, and somehow I can live forever as this body. When you have those two notions, then it's miserable. Because then there's no getting out of your way.
Totally.
Then you're just stuck. Then you're just stuck. Then you try to live life to avoid pain, to avoid sorrow, to avoid death, right? But there's no avoiding them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah?
Supplements.
So, yeah.
Just prolonging.
Well, it's just a living death.
Yeah.
It's just a living death. When we're stuck like that, we're not allowing ourselves to live in this moment. So either way we look at it, and he's got one more coming up, but either way we look at it, then we're missing the point of life and we're missing the ability to live. Does that make sense?
Stepping out of the plane.
We're stuck. One day, in our Soup for the Soul, Eckhart Tolle, we'd taken one of Eckhart Tolle's books, and he discussed these difficult situations of life, and which are pretty common, right? Where we don't know what to do, and it doesn't seem comfortable. It doesn't seem good or right, or I'm not happy, something like this. So he says three options. We have three options. The first option is to change the situation. The second option is to leave the situation. And the third option is to accept the situation. But when you look at our lives, generally speaking, we don't choose any of those three options, but we only have three options. There's no other option, not really, except this fourth, which is not to change it, not to strive to change it, not to try to change it, not to leave it, just to imagine leaving it or something like that, and then not to accept it.
Yeah, that's popular.
Which is living hell. That's where, and by the way, that's where Arjuna was catching himself there in that the Yoga of Despondency of Arjuna in the first chapter. So his urge was, I don't want to fight. And his urge was very much, he wanted to leave.
Yeah.
He wanted to leave. But also he felt stuck there.
Yeah,
so that led to the collapse.
Yeah.
Oh.
If I stay, there will be trouble. If I go, there will be double. Just like that.
Yeah. And by the way, when in the discussion in this Eckhart Tolle, I mean, finally we're having to accept. But the point that he makes is, but one of these three, we have to do one of these three. Because if you strive to change it, then you'll learn something. If you leave it, then you'll learn something. And if you accept it, then you experience that sweet release. Right? And so, yeah, because there's where the release is. And here, Lord Krishna is sharing with Arjuna, this is your duty, you have to do your duty. And let's consider, you've been spouting these would-be words of wisdom, let's consider a different approach to look at the situation. The first is, you're not this body anyway, and no one is. Right? And the second one is, even if you say that you are, then you came from nothing, and you're going back to nothing, so what's the big deal? Swami Vishnu Devananda would say, when he was flying the missions for peace, he had this beautiful outlook, and he said, and it would really be along the line of the second approach, at least the way he spoke, which was, people would say, but you're risking your life. And he says, many people risk their life in the cause of war. Now, these were these peace missions that he was flying, but it's a kind of war too.
Yeah.
Right? Because he was risking his life for it. He was flying over the Berlin Wall. He was flying through these hot spots around the world, and any time. And there were jet fighters sometimes, right next, telling him to land, and he wouldn't land. So any time he could have been shot out of the sky.
Yeah.
But he'd chosen it. That was his duty. That was his dharma, and so he'd chosen that. So people say, but you could die, and he says, well, people die all the time. This is what happens. And he said, many people die in the cause of war, and I am willing to die in the cause of peace. And he said, and what's the difference? I might go a little sooner than you. So here again, Lord Krishna is saying, then do your duty. Then do your duty. You know why you were here. And it had something to do with Swadharma, and it had something to do with helping the cause of these millions of people that are suffering.
Yes.
Right? So this is the second one.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's one more coming. Well, it's like we get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
We get stuck. And Lord Krishna is helping us to get unstuck, to see, I'm free to do my duty. If I die doing it, okay, so what? I mean, if I have the perspective that I'm going to die, then I'm going to die anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, so what? I might as well do it doing my duty, doing what I came here to do.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, so that's the second approach. Okay. And then he gives this third one, and says, furthermore, looking at your own duty, you will see no reason to waver. For certainly there is nothing higher for a Kshatriya than a righteous war. Now here, it's a bit along the line of what we've just been discussing. Swamiji adds this commentary. A Kshatriya is someone of the warrior or ruler caste and is supposed to protect the righteous from the wicked. So that's actually, we forget this in this time. It doesn't seem this way from our world leaders. It seems like they're mostly just in it for themselves. They're not true, but it seems that way. Many are. Many are just in it for themselves. But actually the class, those who are to rule, I mean, somebody has to be in charge. Otherwise we get anarchy, and okay, we can learn from anarchy, but actually we learn better when there's some system in place. It's not that a particular system, democracy or theocracy or communism or any of the isms. It's not that system will provide happiness, but it's always required that there be some leadership in charge. And so this class, as it were, in India, in Sanskrit, Kshatriya, and really the responsibility of a leader is to care for the people and care for the people's well-being and to serve at their benefit and for their benefit. And so there was a time when that was understood more clearly. So a king is a Kshatriya, and the duty of a king is to maintain law and order. That's why he is a ruler. Krishna is reminding Arjuna of that. Now that the war has come, you must uphold righteousness. By retreating from it, you allow unrighteousness to thrive, and that's not fulfilling the Kshatriya's duty. And then he continues. Swamiji just adds this commentary, and if he doesn't do his duty, what will happen? Here Krishna gently pricks Arjuna's pride. 32. Happy indeed are the Kshatriyas, Arjuna, called to fight in such a battle that comes of itself like an open gate to heaven. 33. But if you don't fight when it's your duty to do so, you lose your honor and incur sin. Swamiji adds, you won't be doing the job for which you were created, which is your swadharma, your own duty. Now, this is still taking the approach that, okay, fine, you don't understand what I was saying before. I can accept that. If you don't, then if you look at this as if you are this body, so it's continuing in this way. Not only that, but people will continually recall your shame, 34. And for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. Commentary. What will they think of you? All these days, people were talking about your greatness. Don't you know that? Don't get into this shame. 35. The great charioteers will suppose you withdrew from battle out of fear. Those who thought so highly of you will take you lightly. Commentary. You may have your own excuses. You may say you are compassionate and don't want to kill them, but do you think they'll believe that?
Yeah.
So how will it appear? No, they'll say you are a coward. You were highly esteemed by these people. Hold on to their esteem. 36. And your enemies will deride your strengths and slander you. What could be more painful? And so Swamiji summarizes the three different points here in his commentary. He says, Sri Krishna makes three different points. First, he tells Arjuna about the immortality of the Atman. So first he tells him, thou art immortal. Right? All of this. And he speaks of, and he's teaching the self, capital S self. Then he says that even if it were possible for the soul to be born and to die, there's nothing to worry about anyway, because coming and going are inevitable. And third, speaking from a more worldly standpoint, he tells Arjuna to perform his duty by reminding him that if he ignores his duty, he will incur sin and shame, which is worse than death. Do you suppose it's helpful to have all three of these perspectives?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the third one. The last one. Being a coward.
You know, we can't help the fact that people will watch us, observe us, and based upon our actions, they'll judge.
Yeah.
And it's not about how they judge us, but our actions have an effect on people. Our actions have an effect on people. It's something that we must recognize.
Like inspiring. You'll inspire.
We have something that we deal with in the ashram, for example, and that is Swami encourages everybody to come to satsang in the morning and everybody to come to satsang in the evening, and also recognizes that some people are dealing with, some reason why they feel they shouldn't, and of course we'll have all of these ideas about I don't feel like getting up, I'm ill, I'm this, I'm that, I have other things to do today, whatever it is. We'll have all of these ideas. And the tendency will be to make our decisions based upon what I want or what I need. And that's where Arjuna is here in this Yoga of the Grief of Arjuna. The first chapter is very much there. He's forgotten all about the impact that he has on everyone else. And so there's power in Sangha. Just to continue the line, there's power in Sangha. There's great power in Sangha. When we come together, we contribute to each individual's development. Not just the individuals in the Sangha, but in the entire world. So, and then we see, Swami also knows the way these minds work, and it's very interesting stuff, because the lower nature, which is so loud, it will assert, and it will seem perfectly logical, and that's what Arjuna is dealing with here, right?
Yes.
And it will say, but so-and-so didn't go yesterday. So what's the big deal if I don't go today? It will say that instead of saying, look at it, because it's not a friend when it's doing this.
No.
Instead of saying, but so-and-so else is there every day, and what an inspiration that is, and I want to be like that. And so both of these voices are actually inside. One of them is the conscience, because I want to be uplifting, I want to be beneficial, I want to be supportive, right? So, or my duty is to do this. My duty is to do this. These are voices also that exist within, but it's a very loud one that says, but it's just not a big deal. Nobody will notice. Well, that's a lie, because everybody sees it. Every morning, everyone sees who's not here at satsang this morning.
We're not separate.
We're not separate. We're always observing these people. We're very social. And in the fullness, of course, we're each individualized aspects of the fullness of the whole. So of course there's a caring for every other aspect, because it's our own self.
Right.
We can't actually be separate. We can pretend to be for a long time. But we can't actually be separate. We can't really be separate. And so when ego is ruling, then also again not separate, we just complain about everybody else. And we imagine that we'll be happy if they do what I need for them to do.
I could be the dictator.
So, really, the truth of the matter is, everybody sees everything. And number one, God sees everything. So if we believe in that higher power, if we have some relationship with that higher power, then we recognize, oh my God, and not only that, dear Lord, you see everything from the inside and the outside.
Yeah, yes. That's motives.
Oh my. I better get this house in order. Please help me.
Karma is always there.
Yeah.
And then we say, okay, Krishna, tell me what to do. Please tell me what to do. Tell me what to think. Tell me what to say. Tell me what to think.
Oh.
Tell me what to say. Tell me how to be. Right? If we realize this, that, oh my God, you see everything inside, outside. And by the way, your only concern is for my happiness. Your only concern is for my fulfillment, being who I am, knowing who I am, God.
And what would make him happy is to reclaim that kingdom. So that also...
Well, and he said it won't make him happy, and he's right. It won't make him happy.
Oh, because
And it's not about his happiness.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yes, the goal of life is to be happy, but if you live life as if it is about your happiness, you could never be.
That's true.
Wow.
So true. Gotta let go of that.
That's a living a lie. Because if you try to have separate happiness, then you're taking from others to get it. And you can't, because you'll always have the karmic implications of that.
Cause and effect.
So your happiness could be adding to it. Your happiness could be karma yoga and stuff.
Yeah, so that's where we discover our happiness. We don't create it, but we discover it.
Yeah.
We discover it through selfless action. Yeah. So he goes through the three arguments, as it were, for why you should do. The first two relate to soul. So first is the teaching on soul. The soul is eternal. There's no one killed here. There's no one being born here either. There is that soul, which is the essence of all. That's the first. The second is, okay, the soul dies. Fine. If the soul dies, then the soul is reborn. That's the idea of. And then the third is you have to do your duty, and there are implications if you don't do your duty.
Ego.
Well, you can say ego, but still there are implications if you don't do your duty. There are implications if you don't fight.
Oh yes.
Right? So he's sharing that. If you don't do what is right here, and you have an opportunity to do what is right and what is beneficial, and if you don't, there are implications for this too.
If he turns away, they might just hunt him down and just annihilate him anyway.
Again, it is I understand that we'll often say we don't like this, but it is a fact of life that the way things appear has merit, it has power, that it's meaningful. That of course no one can really understand us based upon the actions that we take. Therefore, they will always be interpreted one way or another. Okay, yes?
Question. So the duty is about fighting, not killing. I'm not understanding what the duty is.
I'll go back to A. There's no killing. So the duty is about bringing Dharma. So here's the situation. Just go back to the situation. His duty. Are you asking about his duty? We're asking about our duty.
His duty.
Okay. Because our duty will be our own swadharma. His duty, he's a Kshatriya. He's been prepared his entire life for this battle. And what's the situation? The situation is that the people that he's supposed to protect, that he's supposed to live for the benefit of, are suffering under a brutal regime that is killing, raping, maiming, stealing everyone all the time. If you read Mahabharata, you see anything that you could possibly imagine that's dastardly and terrible was being done by that regime. Does that help? Okay.
Yeah.
So his duty had to do with that. But each of us have a duty. You have a duty, for example, related to raising field, right? It's no more or less important. It's not less important, it's not more important. But it is your duty. So each of us have some duty. Each of us have some duty. And so the inspiration from Lord Krishna will be, do your duty. And the same three reasons will be there. So what are the concerns? What are the forces that pull at us in order not to do our duty? So the fear is there, isn't it? Feeling of judgment, feeling of anger are there. The pull towards pleasure is there. The pull to avoid painful situations is there. All that stuff's there, right? It's the same. Same. Really, the battle is inside between these two forces that are pulling on us. And then our choice of which one. And here again, Lord Krishna would say, don't let fear of death or bodily harm or something happening to you take you off of doing your duty. Your duty comes first. And any way you look at it, if you actually look at it, you'll see. First is soul. We're concerned with here, freedom, which is the recognition that I am not this body. Second is development of the soul. And then the third is the impact of your doing your duty or not doing your duty upon all of those that you touch. I mean, if we take the approach, I'm not this body, honest to God, it's hard to imagine, but to be free of fear, anger, hatred, greed, judgment, to be free of all of these, what does that allow you to do? It allows you to be present, fully present to whatever's happening, to see through the appearances, and to engage in a way where you're completely undisturbed. Right? To know completely and fully that whatever happens here, it doesn't affect me. That's a kind of freedom, isn't it? It is freedom. To be free of my own limited tendencies. To be free of what people say. To be free of what people do. To be free of the natural circumstances, the earthquakes and the storms and all of this, the asteroid that's coming, certainly that'll be here soon.
Yeah, taking some Also, if this wasn't a huge story, we wouldn't be hearing about it now. That kind of thing is recorded in the Akashic record so that other people can write this story down. And then, if he had turned away, we wouldn't be reading about it these days. It wouldn't be such a huge book.
The purpose of everything that happens here, everything is a teacher. Everything is a teacher. So, and this is clearly is here as a teacher and a teaching. Okay, we'll close the front page and that too. Page 174. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Surandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityoi Mukshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Surandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityoi Mukshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Surandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityoi Mukshiyama Mritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Shanti Nirahamaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Makashi Dukhabad Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Mritangamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudashate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold Thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve Thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember Thee. Let us ever sing Thy glories. Let Thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Humbler Sakura Shivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Humbler Sakura Saraswati Mani Ki Jai. Saraswati.